Chicago's LGBT caucus is under new leadership, and with it comes a renewed charge to be more active in addressing community issues. And joining us now is the new chair of Chicago's LGBT caucus, Alderman Lamont Robinson of the 4th Ward. Alderman Robinson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you, and congratulations on the new role. Can you tell folks a little bit about your journey towards city council? Because you've had a long career.
Thank you very much. Hence the gray beard. I was in the Illinois General Assembly for 5 years, and I have been in the Chicago City Council for almost 2 years. And as you know, and many of your viewers know, we have the gayest city council in the country.
Yes, we do.
There is 9 of us, and out of the 9, my colleagues elected me to be the chair of the LGBTQ plus caucus in the city of Chicago, which I'm honored to serve in this post.
Yeah. So what is that process like? I mean, did you say like, hey, I'm in, like, I kind of want to do this, or like or was it just kind of a surprise? Like, hey, we think you should lead the caucus.
Well, Alderman Bennett had been the chair for several years after Tom Tunney, who created the LGBTQ plus caucus. When Alderman Bennett was tasked with being the zoning chair, we had a caucus meeting that we needed leadership. And I was asked by a couple of my colleagues to consider running. And once I made that decision, it was a vote of all members, and I was voted in this post.
Well, congratulations. It's amazing. As you said earlier, Chicago has the most LGBTQ members of any city council in the country. We've got 9 members. What do you see as the role of the LGBTQ plus caucus?
The role is really to keep an eye on our community, keep an eye out on ordinances, laws in the city of Chicago, but we also need to make sure that we're tuned in to the state, we're tuned in at the federal level, and that we're making sure that we are the voice of the LGBTQ plus community in the city of Chicago, and really the entire state, because there's so many of us. And we need to be able to make sure that although we're in Chicago, that we're supporting all of our members across the entire state of Illinois.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. The HRC just released the 2024 Municipal Equality Index, and what it does, it measures the laws, policies, and services to gauge the commitment of cities towards LGBTQ equality. Great news throughout the country. A record 130 cities scored a perfect 100. Including Chicago, which is yay us, and yay the 129 other cities. What do you see as the most pressing issues facing our community here in Chicago?
Look, with the current election, or the previous election behind us, we're facing potential roadblocks of federal anti-discrimination policies in employment, and housing, and education. Our health care rights are also at risk. And we're already seeing the introduction of laws to restrict gender-affirming care for minors, barring transgender individuals from using the bathroom, and ban transgender participation in sports. And lastly, we're also seeing states ban books and prohibit discussions of LGBTQ topics in schools. So this is what's going on across the country. And it is why I'm honored to represent the caucus, because these are things that we have to keep an eye on. We have to set the example in the city of Chicago for the state and the country that this cannot happen, that this community has to continue to keep its rights that we've all fought for, and we need our protection.
So I might be a little slow on this, but with these federal legislation that might be coming down the pike, but we're pretty sure that it is. Does it override, like if a city or a state says, that it is illegal to discriminate against LGBTQ folks for, say, housing, employment, healthcare, does that override a federal law?
Well, the good thing is that in the state of Illinois and in the city of Chicago, we're at a place where these laws will not affect our day-to-day operations as it relates to employment and housing. The issue is that there's certainly other states that this can. And also, we have to be very careful of funding because in the city of Chicago, many of our homeless youth are LGBTQ. And so much of that money, comes from the federal government. And so although the nuances of the laws might not affect us, the pocketbook, the finances of how we fund HIV funding, how we fund housing could be at jeopardy.
Oh, boy.
So do you see, this incoming president has a reputation of wanting to retaliate against blue cities, blue states. Do you think that he's going to have an impact? I mean, is there anything that he could do or his administration could do that could really throw us off our game here when it comes to LGBTQ rights?
Funding. That's the number one pressing issue. And so that means that we have to, in Chicago, we're going through this budget cycle right now, which is why it's important to have representation to make sure that while we're tightening our belt, and we do need to tighten our belt in the city of Chicago, but we still need to make sure that we're keeping an eye out for how we're spending money in the homeless sector, particularly our youth, as well as HIV. We still see high rates of HIV numbers in the Black and brown communities, although we're seeing this trend go down across the board. Again, it is still specifically hiking in the Black and brown community, particularly our youth. And so, again, we have to keep an eye out on the funding, and we have to make sure at the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, that we are still putting money aside for the LGBTQ plus community.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also, on that same vein, but let's zoom out a little bit. One of my biggest concerns is Ding Dong hates Chicago,
right?
Because we booed him out of here, we got him out. He just hates Chicago, and Chicago is often used as an example of this is a horrible place to live. There's guns and blah, blah, blah. It's like, as a broader council issue, are you worried across the board in terms of what that ripple effect that Chicago will be targeted?
Oh, absolutely, which is why I'm working on an ordinance looking at making Chicago a sanctuary city for the trans community, looking at prohibiting the use of resources to cooperate or assist other jurisdictions and enforcing discriminatory laws against people seeking gender-affirming care in Illinois, which is a big deal right now. Yeah. And also preventing any city, agency, or staff from contributing in any way to criminalize someone who is seeking care for their loved ones. And also keeping an eye out on providers that receive city money, and if they are doing anything that's nefarious towards our community, that we can stop that funding. And so for me, it is one more extra step, one more extra layer to make sure that we protect our community, but particularly our trans brothers and sisters that continue to be under attack.
Yeah. And so, Alderman, so your vision is to have the LGBTQ caucus to be more engaged in all these various committees. Is that correct?
That is correct. And not only in Chicago, but across the entire state. We have LGBTQ folks across the entire state. We also have LGBTQ folks that are office holders. We also have LGBTQ folks that want to be office holders We need representation in our library boards, our school boards, at the county level, at the state level, city level, all across the state. And so one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing, working with my caucus, the Equality of Illinois, is make sure that we strengthen this community in the state of Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And see, I'm thinking that the way that we are going to survive the next 4 years is really like focusing in, let's get local and make sure that we're shoring up the protections that we have and doing the best we can. Like you said, the funding issues, I know a lot of people, I have a friend in higher education who is freaking out about the federal dollars that are coming. So we're so grateful that we have someone like you on the council to be leading the LGBTQ caucus to help fight for our rights. So that is something that I am very thankful for this Thanksgiving holiday.
Indeed. You do have your work cut out for you, though, as we say.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. And I think it's important for our allies to know that we need them.
Yeah.
This is the time where our allies need to stand up and be there with us. And so I'm grateful for you allowing me this opportunity to talk a little bit about what's happening in our community and what we're up against coming up in January.
Yeah. Well, the door is always open to you, good sir. What do you have fun Thanksgiving plans this week?
I am providing about 500 families across the Fourth Ward dinners that will be cooked. We'll be working with the Masonic Temple, which is at 43rd and Cottage Grove here in the Fourth Ward. It is something that we've been doing for 20 plus years, and making sure that folks have a hot meal for their families on Thanksgiving. And so I'm absolutely happy to provide this to families across the Fourth Ward. And I just more importantly want to thank the sponsors. It's probably over 50 folks that do delivery, that do the cooking, and make sure that folks are going to get a hot meal on Thanksgiving.
Well, that's a beautiful and selfless way to celebrate. So my hat's off to you.
That's what it should be about, giving back and giving thanks. Alderman Lamont Robinson, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful holiday. And like I said, whenever you want to come on back, we will help spread the word, especially to our allies.